So the first process would be open up Capture. This software program lets us build a stage and position the lighting and the equipment where we would have it on the venue, on the gig. So the first thing we need to do is build the stage. So we're going to add a box to this setup. Do that by finding it in the library, in objects. Obviously there's more things there to add as you look through the list. You go down, you're looking for shapes, I believe. So you drag this in, and at that point there you can drag it around, position it. Looking at the three boxes around the screen, you can see the front, top and right side view, but you can change the camera view as you go through it. This is where you can edit and change the dimensions and sizes of things. So at the minute we are just creating a large space, 86 meters. You can see it's built from the back, and then adding in the truss sections as well. I've sped the video up at times to make this quicker process. Adding in the people next. This is just an actor, but the band and the lineup this is set up for contains 9 people, so we've cloned them, and then I've dragged them around the stage to positions where they'll be live on a show. There's a keyboard, second keyboard position and a saxophone position put in. The instruments being added is a drum kit. Obviously standing a drummer in the place there seems a bit daft. Being able to position lights on a drum kit is more logical, so that's why that's being put in place. And there's 2 keys positions to be put in, so obviously once the first keyboard's been put in, they can be cloned and then repositioned to the second keyboard play at the rear, like we've just seen that. Noticing that the truss was set up originally too high, you can lower that down next. So rearranging the show to try and look like the venues, obviously the calculations you'd get from the venue beforehand, and get the stage size, dimensions, and try and get a rough layout of where people are being stood. Obviously you're planning your positions for these different actors at the minute, so they may change on the venue, so you'd have to change some position palettes in Avolites later on. So now we're getting on to the positioning of lights. So we're adding the lights. Obviously we've got to try and use the lighting that we're going to use on the show, so obviously going to be positioning and setting colours and shapes, gobos, etc. So it'd be good to know the lighting setup that you're going to use on your venue before you get started. Setting up the front and the rear trusses for the GLPs at the minute before we add the next type of lights in, and you can search for them in the library for different fixtures. So you've got to make sure that you've got the right mode as well. So some of these lights CMY, some of them are RGB, so you want to make sure you get the right lighting type, otherwise they won't respond the same when you're programming later on. So you can move them around the stage and get the x-axis, y-axis correct, hanging them from the truss. Again, these positions may change when you get to each venue. So for the rear lights, the clay packies that is going to be added very shortly, I've added a box for them to sit on. Now I've done the dimensions of the box to the road trunk flight cases that we take on the gig, so that's what we usually sit them on. If the rear truss isn't strong enough to support as many heads, you need to consider the weight and the loading safely, so sometimes we'll sit them on a box, and sometimes that gives a good effect as well. So the dimensions that are being created for these boxes are set up to be the dimensions of a road trunk flight case that we use to transport cables and whatever else. So you can clone, once you've got one right, you can then clone that, so you don't have to keep doing it, and then obviously reposition them around the stage. As you can see, we've changed the view of the top right hand box there, so if you can't clearly see the stage when it starts to get busy, you can rotate it around to see a bit clearer. And this is adding in the clay packies, Alpha Beam 700s, and trying to get them positioned on the flight case, the boxes that we've just designed and put in. So you can clone once you've got one right, you can then clone that, so you don't have to keep doing it, and then obviously reposition them around the stage. As you can see, we've changed the view of the top right hand box there, so if you can't clearly see the stage when it starts to get busy, you can rotate it around to see a bit clearer. And this is adding in the clay packies, Alpha Beam 700s, and trying to get them positioned on the flight case, the boxes that we've just designed and put in. So once you've shuffled them around, you've then got yourself a capture file with all the setup of the standard show that you would take. You can then save that file. We're now ready to start programming into Ava Lights and patching the lights that we've just set up. So we're going to start off Ava Lights Titan. It is a Windows program, but it's running on Parallels, so that's why you can see it running quite well. And as you can see now, the console patch, this console patch in the top right hand corner is from Capture, and it's recognised what lights have already been programmed into this Ava Light show, so it remembers the last show you worked on, so you need to set up a new one and wipe the DMX settings so it starts afresh. And then we need to find the same fixtures, the same personalities that we've just listed in the Capture setup. So now you can see a clearer view of the patch window. You usually use this software package over 2 displays, so you get a widescreen. This is why there'll be a lot of rearranging of screens, etc. So we're searching for the first heads, the GLPs. So you need to make sure they're in normal mode, which is 14 channels, and you can move them across. You can see they're in order there. You can just show, this just shows you that there's a range of different GLP fixtures that is in the lighting controller, so you need to make sure you get the right one. This is 14 DMX addresses. Then we change the quantity. We're going to add 10 in for 4 at the front, 6 at the back. And then once you click patch, you can see the green bar across the top shows you how many DMX addresses you've got left in your controller. This is just on an Ava Lights Titan 1, so we only get one universe, which is 512 channels. So the next lights we're going to look for are the Martin Max. So you go back to search for the personalities. Search for new manufacturer now. The last manufacturer was GLP, so you need to select the new manufacturer now. And as you can see, all the manufacturers start to shorten down as you get to the right one. All the soft keys on the right hand side of the screen. So making sure we get the right mode again, 17 channels or 14 channels. I've put these in the extended mode, which was 17 channels, so we need to make sure that we add them ones, and we've got 6 of them, so that's the reason why that's getting added. The address will just follow on unless you want to change it, so you can just, it'll calculate how many addresses the last head's needed, so then you won't have to change it, it'll just add to. So as you now see on the capture file, I'm scrolling down to just double check that we're getting all the right heads. So we've got the 6 Martin Mac 250 Kryptons there, and then finally we're looking for the alpha beams. So these are clay packy alpha beam 700s. Again, we've got a couple of different menus, different modes. We're going for the 22 channel mode, I believe. And then 6 of these as well, and these are the ones that were on the flight cases or the boxes at the back of the capture file were created. And this is the full patch mode. This is a full patch list that we've got in Ava Lights Titan, so that's the controller now knowing which heads we've got to select. Now on capture, we need to go back and we need to patch the heads on capture to what it's going to be on Ava Lights Titan. So you can start to see, put an address 1, 15, next channel is going to be 27, 29 I think. So yeah, so these are all got 14 addresses between them, and obviously as you go through, I've sped this part of the video up, it's just going to match the patch list that we've got on the Ava Lights Titan console or software. Now notice that so far we haven't got DMX in from the console. This is showing you which universe that the software is getting its settings from. We do need to assign something, there you go, some DMX interference because it's not on the right process. We need to go into the system and change the DMX settings. So we'll leave all the patch menu. And just to prove it's not working still, it's not getting any DMX through from each software package, still got this interference going on. I mean, there's things you can check, like I'm just demonstrating here, is we're on the right modes, because sometimes if you've got the wrong modes, that'll cause this situation as well. But again, we've set this up to know that they were going to be the right modes. I believe the Kryptons actually were in normal mode, so they're now getting extended, but still, this isn't the issue we're facing right now. So just, you can make sure that the heads are communicating and on the right preset. So you can get the alpha beams in RGB and CYM. So we're just swapping them as well. Still, as you can see, the DMX isn't following and doing as we required. And again, just cross-referencing and making sure that the right file type was there for Avelites. While we're on, we can tidy up the groupings as well. For some unknown reason, well, Avelites are aware of it, that the auto group does create groups twice over, so I've deleted the spare groups and just moving them across to make it more logical. Right, so again, you can save this file as we're going through. Just demonstrating it's getting saved, so obviously we've put a lot of data into it so far, we don't want it to crash. And then we're going to go to System and DMX Settings, and then we're going to put the broadcast universe into line 1. So this will now mean that the DMX can communicate between the Avelites and the capture file, and you can see it there. And if we select that to run, that's on the broadcast that we've just seen. And look at the lights, they've stopped now, so they're now ready to be controlled. So then, just to demonstrate this, we can also set new groups as well. This is to select all heads very instantly. Again, it's going to help us out with some time and effort later on. There you go, there's the lights all communicating now and responded. So they were located, that means they go vertically down, and they're in the mode of no colour, no gobo, no pattern, no prism. So as we go to pan and tilt now the positions, you'll see that the lights are doing the same thing. So they all tilt in the same process, which is good. The heads at the front are reversed, which is potentially the way they were set up. But again, you can change the positioning. This is just demonstrate. You can change the orientation if they were in the wrong way, that you could change it 180 degrees round. I'm doing that in capture. Okay, so this is located again. I'm going to tilt them up. So this is controlled over 2 screens, so you can't see fully Avelites being worked, but that will be shown later on. But like you can see the pans all doing the same. So now what we're going to want to do is to invert them. So you invert them on capture. You can invert them on capture, but we're going to invert them on the controllers now. If you do it on both, it's obviously just going to override one. So this is inverting the front heads, the GLPs on the front bar. You can see them getting entered. One's turned around there, and the others are following it. Now I've just sped the process up for the rest, but now watching the rear lights, they are inverted as well, so you've got them cross stage. Okay, so just quickly, I've added in some speakers to make it a bit more authentic to a gig, and I've also put in some tri-pixel buttons at the back and some par cans across the front there to catch some front light on. As you can see, I'm just demonstrating them there quickly, and then the tri-pixel buttons behind there as well. Now these are things that we don't have on every job, but sometimes, and especially for a job like this, it can be quite effective from the side of the light, from the side of the stage. And also the par cans at the front is to replicate what happened on the Pulse tour anyway. So once we're happy with that and we've got the capture file set up and the lights are patched on both programs, we can then start to look to get in to programming properly. Now, what we've just done in Capture Atlas is let us to put people and build the stage up and put the truss in and all the rest of it. Just to show you this, Capture have actually gone into business and partnership with Avelites, and they've actually allowed a capture visualizer internal within the software package. So obviously this is perfect when you've got a split screen and you can see this over 2 displays. But to be able to do this within Capture as well is pretty impressive, and just demonstrating here quickly as well that you can do exactly the same processes that we've just done in the Capture window, but this time within the Avelite software package itself. Obviously the limitations to a degree are you can't add in people and trussing and other elements. There's a lot more shapes and features, but obviously that's why you pay extra money for the actual Capture software package as well. So as you can see here, I'm just going to quickly demonstrate how to set up a show file internal within Avalites as well, still using what the class as a capture visualizer, so it's still the capture software potentially. Now obviously to try and do this on one screen is quite difficult, so trying to rearrange windows, as you can see, just to demonstrate the different screens and different modes we're going to need. So we're going to need the fixtures, individual fixtures, so that I can select them one by one. And as you can see at the bottom, the wheel groupings now, they've got position X, Y, Z on. And basically if you select a head, a fixture, and then change the X, Y, or Z positioning of it, it'll then map out to a display or a screen that you want to do. So again, pretty effective, pretty good, but again there's limitations. You can't add in people, objects, drum kits, etc. So again, this will be sped up very quickly just to be able to demonstrate how to do another show file. As you can see, starting to get it to look like a logical position. No boxes this time for the rear lights, they just look like they're floating in mid-air, but again they would potentially be on top of a flight case in a real gig. So to be able to see the screen a little bit better and to demonstrate the movement, etc., this is just showing you that you can add in, we can add in a box here, but we can't add in people and actors, etc. You can change some of the appearance settings, very simple, very vague, but it's the limitations we've got. So what you can see is we can actually add in the capture file that we did originally. So this is us now adding this in, and as you can see, when it loads up, it should have the people, the trussing, the speakers, the park cans, everything that we added, and there you go, there's your visualizer now. So it takes a little bit longer, but you get a better appearance, and your programming's gonna look a lot better from that. So as all the heads are patched, we can locate them, and as you can see, just moving around the screen there to demonstrate this, you've got your front heads that are hanging off the front bar of the truss next to the speakers, and then you've got a rear set of GLPs. You've got the clay packies that sat on the flight cases at the back, and then the Martin Mac 250 Kryptons that are on the middle truss. Now this is a sort of typical lighting show that we would give for this type of event. There's the power cans at the front just to check that they're working, and then the tri-pixel buttons to demonstrate them will bring down the intensity. Now obviously on a external display, it's a bit glitchy with the visual display at times, so it's not always perfect precision video, but it does the job for what you need to see. So just to see the tri-pixel buttons a bit clearer, I'm going to have to move the camera around. There you go. So because they are selected, they're outlined, but you can see them in that purple colour as well. Right, okay, so in this situation here, we've basically got the capture file imported into Avalites and all the patching done, ready to be able to start programming for our lighting show that we need to timecode. So basically at this point here, what we're doing is we are going to create some palettes for quick use and quick effect. So if you've got color mixture fixtures like the alpha beams and the GLPs, the tri-pixel buttons, what we can do is we can make color palettes pretty quickly, and we can make them what they call global shared. So by just selecting one type of fixture, changing the color mix within the attribute editor, again I've sped this up just for simplicity, you can go across the color mix and add them in, but as long as they're global shared, that means they'll apply to all fixtures. The next aspect that would be beneficial is to start looking at position palettes. So sort of knowing the show and knowing where people are going to be stood, and looking at the capture file here, we can position lighting before the event into certain areas for certain parts of songs, etc., that you know you're going to need. So what you can see here now is we're trying to light up the guitar position of Ted on the left and Graham on the right there within the front GLPs. Then the rear GLPs are going to be there to flood the stage, so we'll locate them, bring them forward. So that's going to give some colour to the stage area. So this was done with a mouse. It can be a little bit finicky, obviously it's a lot easier with the hardware controller, but that's extra money. So Doing these things allows you to set this up in your house or workplace, wherever, before events, before shows, to save you some time and effort. So these are the kryptons that we're angling now backwards towards the back of the stage, where you've got the singers and the drum kit. So we'll try and get some direction on them. To do that, you'll have to maybe position them separately, so you'll have to select them one by one. Again, just rearranging some windows so you can still see capture happening at the same time. So Paul, the keyboard player on the right hand side of the stage, or stage left if you like, is also sort of in the dark at the minute, so that you can see the two kryptons on the right hand side of the screen there, getting positioned towards him. As you can see, the selection of the middle two kryptons is going to be moved towards the drum kit to try and light that up. Again, so with a mouse, not so quick and speedy. With the hardware control, this is a lot easier, especially with the hardware controller being a touchscreen as well. Selecting buttons and fixtures, etc., can be like sped up a lot quicker than this. So then the next two kryptons are going to be positioned on the backing singer. So there's 3 backing vocalists. They're not in every song, so again, there's got to be selection and time for this to happen. Sometimes this would be wasted light, so you'd have to sort of position this knowing that it incorporated the backing vocalist within this song. You can just see the 3 people from a distance in the background there. And then these are the clay packies, which generally get brought out into the audience to sort of do some, I wouldn't suggest audience scanning as laser work, but give that impact. So once you've got your position of your heads, very similar to how we did the colour palettes, we just select in the position palette box, we can name them and we can label them up. You can also change it again later on if you made a mistake. You can even try drawing a picture, so there's a messy picture about to be drawn here. And this is why you would potentially write something for this type of show, this type of setup, sorry, this type of scene. But as you can see, if you had something defined or distinctive, you could put different colours in for different lights and try and draw a better position than that. Obviously that was rubbish, so we'll start again. Now with the touch screen again, very easy to draw with your finger onto the actual screen, but this time round you might find that even drawing with a mouse is still achievable. So it can just be a little bit easier to see something big in writing like this. And this would go instead of just a standard text. But again, you can draw pictures or images within this box. So I'd class this position that we've just set up now as a basic stage flood. You've obviously got some set positioning, but it's not isolated completely to just one person or one thing, one area of the stage. You would potentially get a range of different positions before you start doing the programming, as you can see here. So these are different stage floods going on. This is a crowd blinder, so this is the end of songs or during songs, special points. And now as you can see, some heads are moving within some of these positions, and that's because they've only got data on some of them. And there is key elements in certain parts of the song, like Shine On, where Paul the keyboard player should be lit up by himself, points where the centre keyboard position needs to be lit up by themselves. So as you can see, some of the positions won't work on all the heads. So just to isolate some of the positions, I've dropped some of the heads out, put the dimmer down. So there's a Ted and Graham guitar position, but the right heads weren't selected to be able to move there. There's a drum position, so you've got a drum flood. Okay, so these front positions now should bring Ted and Graham into the picture. I'm going to take the rear GLPs out. Encryptions. Okay, so the front GLPs. So there's just a cross stage, there's Ted and Graham guitars position, Ted's guitar position, then there's a split there. Just to demonstrate, only some of these heads had certain elements in. There's Paul's keys position from the beginning of Shine On. Okay, so within the colour palettes and the position palettes, we're now ready to do some gobos. Now obviously the gobos only work on certain heads and certain features, so the gobos and shapes, gobos and beams wasn't accurate with so it wasn't displayed with capture over the top, so I've just moved that out of the way. And as you can see, you can also set prisms on these, so I've just moved them down so you can see them clear on the stage area. So you've got a fast prism, slow prism, and then prism off as well. And the prism only affects the beam, it doesn't affect the gobo, so you have to make sure if you want the prism to be affecting a certain gobo, you select both things, but we don't want that, for more functionality, more control. So these are the kryptons. Notice the area has other things in between the kryptons and the prism section, and that's for the alpha beams, but until the alpha beams are selected you won't be able to adjust them or change them. So if we took the intensity down on them and bring in the alpha beams, using the group, put intensity on, and obviously to be able to see the beams clearly we have to drop them down. So as you can now see, the gobos have lit up on there, so they were greyed out before. Notice the top ones are now greyed out because obviously they're not part of that grouping. The different types of heads, different type of fixtures have different gobos in. There you can see, and then obviously as you go through the different patterns you can then add the prism to them as well. So the GLPs are just a wash light, they don't have any gobo effect inside, so you can't store anything in there obviously. And the different prisms are demonstrated as well. So you've got a good starting point now to be able to begin programming. Now obviously knowing the type of lighting show that you want, knowing the type of song, sounds, etc. that you, effects that you want within the song is going to be beneficial. So you can do certain elements like chases and shapes that we're going to need for certain parts of it. All this pre-programming does take time and effort, but again, another reason why, if you've got the capture visualizer software, you can sit and program this before you get to the event. Having to try and do this in a sound check or before a song starts, before a show starts, is it's quite stressful and difficult. So this is the stages of programming a chase. There is a chase that's going to be used within the Learning to Fly song that we're looking at timecoding. Now the good thing is we can actually just do this as a standard chase, appending each step as you go through, and as you can see we're bringing up each light one by one. Now this obviously isn't going to make it very random, and as you go through the sequence and finish that off as I did there very quickly, you'll notice it's going to play forward in a slow manner. Now to be able to change them we can go into edit times and up the BPM, sorry. And take off the crossfade so it snaps into the lights rather than actually fading between each other. So that's now sped up the chase, but notice it's still going in one direction. We can then go to playback options and we can change the direction. So play forward, play backwards, bounce through, and then finally randomize, which is what we're going to want to do in the actual event anyway. So this is now random. So this is a setting I would leave that one in. Right, so other effects that we're going to need is some shapes. Just to show you as well, you can randomly chase certain sets of fixtures. That was GLPs, these were pre-set up just to speed up the process. That's the dimmer chase, that's just the park hands by themselves. This is the kryptons by themselves. And then these are the tripixel buttons at the back. So this is a colour chase and shape movement on the alpha beams, which is going to be needed within one part of the song that we're going to be dealing with. This is also like a crowd scanner that's being set up as well, which is just a simple pan saw. We're going to program these again later anyway, just to show you. So this is what we're going to need to build next to be able to do this sequence, and it's basically a cue list built of all the different cues within the song for each of the stages. Now, as you can see, going through these, pressing go, they're obviously being automated by us pressing go on the lighting cue. And it's not being sequenced as in a time basis, but obviously it's just the different layers and stages. Now, to be able to recreate this, or to get these ideas, I've followed what they did on the Pulse tour, so I had to sit and watch that, which we're about to do now. Just to demonstrate as well that the swap functions on the hardware controller, or even on the software package, can work as a latch system, so you can actually put them on and watch what they're doing, hold them down, so they can be quite creative and quite effective. So to be able to program the cue list as we need, we're going to get some assistance from the live performance, the live show. So to do this we need to observe it, obviously, so this is it searching for it on YouTube. I'm going to take the first link there. So this is how the song starts in blackout before the drums kick in. So this is the percussion start before the song starts. And as you can see, obviously the stage is much bigger, the number of heads is much bigger, so we're going to try and recreate this effect as much as possible with the limited lighting show that we've got. So starting off, we're going to obviously select the rear lights, try and light up the drum up. So using some of the positions that we've got in the palettes, we might find that they need fine tuning, so to be able to do this we can still override, we can still select them and then take a more isolated view if you want to, by selecting each head individually. Or if they are positioned equidistant, you can actually do them in pairs as well. This is obviously going to speed up a bit of time instead of having to bring them in one by one. And there we go, so we've got the drum kit now lit up, very similar to as is on the live Pulse tour. So again, might need to come back to this at some point, so it's a better drum position. We can store this as a position palette, add to as we go through programming wise as well. If we feel we're going to need the same system or same positioning later on, we can do that. So now we're going to record a cue list. And this is basically a row of scenes that we're going to be able to interlink from one to the other as we go through the audio on timecode on Winamp. So now what we're going to do is we're going to try and light the bass player up. So once the drums start the song, the bass player comes in next, so we're going to try and utilise the rear GLPs to try and light up the back of the bass player. So again, the positioning that we put the people on the stage in the first place during a capture file, we do need to appreciate that these might be slightly different. When you get to the event, then people aren't going to stand exactly where you've maybe positioned them in your visualizer, so you might have to go through and change your position palettes. Now if you do record them all off position palettes, when you update the palette it will update the cue list as well, which is quite a key feature to identify. So obviously that's a bit dark from the back, just lighting him up as a silhouette effect, so we're also going to incorporate one GLP at the front there to give some light on the face of the bass player. You can see lifting it up in the position, it's about right now. And then we can append that. So we've got two stages now on our cue list. So then we can go back to the video and continue to watch what happens after this. Right, so we've got a pink flood of stage. So as we've already set up the stage flood before as a positioning, we can go to that. And then if we go to our colour palette that's hidden underneath there at the minute, there we go, we can bring that in. But notice obviously the colour of the stage might be a little bit too much, so we can also incorporate some white lights and even bring in the par cans. Now the par cans on the visualizer at full intensity do override a lot of the people on stage, etc. So you can also set that to a minimum, or not a minimum, but a halfway intensity to make sure that you're not getting completely blinded. So following on that same procedure, I've sped up the video basically, where we're going in and out of the YouTube video to see what people are doing positioning wise, lighting wise, and then trying to reproduce it. So at this point here we've got to the guitar solo break, where we're going to need to have a colour chase between the green and yellow. So as you can see, we've just got the alpha beams on at this point here. Now to affect them individually, we're also, to try and make it a sharper beam, these obviously are going to be done on lasers. To be able to reproduce this, I've gone for a tighter gobo, so change the gobo on these, and then be able to change the fixtures individually. We're going to have to get to the fixtures in groups. So obviously losing the workspace windows, again this is why an external display helps. Losing the workplace windows means you're going to have to save them and flick between them. So you'll lose the capture visualizer for a short period of time, but trusting that you've selected the right heads and putting them in the right colours when you get back to capture. There you go, so we've added them yellow lights in. We're going to record this as a chase. Okay, so this is step one. Then what we're going to do is reverse the colours of the heads, so obviously going to change them to green, while we've already got them selected, to save us having to go backwards and forwards on screens. These are now going to become yellow. And then we're going to append that cue. Again, there's nothing wrong with the visualizer as such, it's just the video display dropping the intensity every 5 seconds. Okay, so that now will show colour chase between them, and again you can change the speed by going to edit times. And this is another thing, going back to the video to see how quick it happens, trying to get the pulse of what's happening, tap it out on the table, then get it in time with the lighting controller. So also within this process they need to do a movement, a pan saw side to side, just dropping off the crossfade as well, so it snaps to the colour changes. So in shape generator, you need to select the heads first. You then go to create, and we're going to go for something called a pan saw, so that means they're going to move side to side. Now looking at the lights, obviously it's too fast, movement's possibly too big in size, and they're all doing the same thing. So in the effect settings at the bottom, we can change the speed, slow it down. We can change the size as a middle attribute, and then we can also change the phase so they actually do alternate at different points. So they're not doing the same cycle, they're not going to appear to be exactly the same, and that was where you get some crossfade between the lights, some crossover within the light shape. So this does happen on quite a slow pace, but again, watching the video on the sideline and then flicking back to this or having it on a separate screen will show you how quick it might want to look. By changing the phase now, this should start to move out of sync. There you go. So you're starting to get some crossover. Now it's not as balanced and even as you like, so it's just a case of trying to fine tune it to the point where you're happy. And then we can record that stage as another scene with a movement and a colour chasing. Just to run it to make sure it's there, it's happy. Okay. So as we go through and just check the different scenes that we've put on our cue list, we need to add this one in. So we'd add in a cue at the end, and then we're going to auto load that pattern that we've just created in the cue list later on. So we're just getting the position palette back up. Stage flood. We're going to drop the intensity. Now, keeping the positions the same for the heads that aren't needed will mean there won't be much movement when we do run it later on. So we've appended in a black step there, which we're then going to auto load in that chase, colour chase and movement. So at this point here, obviously start to add a lot of cues in. At this point here, it would be good to start naming them so we don't get confused later on. As you can see, whatever your legend that you want to save them as, if you can remember the stages you've done off the top of your head, you can start to infill them like this. But very shortly I'll show you that we can have the visualizer and run the cue list at the same time. Obviously we know the last one we've just done, the green and yellow hand sort. Again, if you can't remember which ones you've actually programmed, we can then split the screen, have the capture visualizer and the playback view, and label them up properly as you go through each stage. So change the view of the windows for this to happen. So the first cue, second, third, fourth, and so on. So this process will be sped up just to demonstrate the listing. Again, for each of these cues you can title them like we're doing, or you can put pictures, images in. Okay, so back to this section of the video, we're going to see what happens next. Now notice that there's lights on the bottom pan soaring. We don't have that We don't have that potential within this lighting show, so we're going to try and emulate it in a manner. These are the lights that we're using for the green and yellow, so they are on the floor, they're lower down, but they're not as it's not going to be able to replicate it too well if I use them to do the white scanning in the audience. So what I've decided to do instead is use the GLPs to create that impact. Now the next stage is actually using the another feature of the lighting controller by fanning the heads as they've got a curved dome stage. This obviously doesn't let you do that in a straight truss. We can actually fan the lights, as you can see a curve within them there. When we've got to bring the lights up and down, notice that it's not in a straight line anymore, it's being curved round. That's through a fan mode by pulling the middle out first, making it more into an arrow. And underneath that we also have a silhouette effect of the guitar player. Now two of the clay packies behind the backing vocalist can't be seen, so they've had to just do a general flood of the stage. And then finishing off the rest of the video being sped up. Flicking between the YouTube clip and the capture visualizer to try and recreate it. So the random chases needs to be input auto-loaded just like we did the colour chase before, but again within the aspect of the chase we need no intensity on any of the heads, otherwise the dimmer chase won't run. By creating the chase layout as a blackout, we then go to auto-load. and just because I've pre-programmed them previously for speed, we're actually going to mix the chases of the GLPs, the Parkans, which was on the dimmers, the Kryptons, and also the tripixel battens. This means that it won't just chase on one set of fixtures. All of them 4 uploaded chases will now run. When we get to that section of the song, we'll be able to run all of the different chases at the same time. So you can now just flick through the entire video, make sure they're happening. Now, one thing we noticed is that the tilt saws were still overlapping into certain aspects, and pan saws were still overlapping. Now this happens through the shape aspect. The shapes that we've put in with the pans, they can still overrun into the next one unless we turn them off. So there's me turning the pan saw off, this is me turning off the tilt saw. And that will stop those shapes following on into the next next scene, basically, next cue. Okay, so looking at the end of the song, there's the random dimmer chase. Before there being a crowd blinder to end. And this is just for a short burst of time as well. So that short burst there we're going to try and reproduce by putting the heads on full intensity. Bring them out into the audience slightly through the positioning. And then we're going to record that as our last cue. And this will be our short blinder that we put at the end, so we can call it blinder as well. If you label up the legends as you go through, it can be quicker than having to go through and do it one by one like we did previously. Just another process for us to be able to do. Okay, so we're just releasing the playbacks before we just double check that they're all recorded. Flying through them very quickly, obviously. Right, so now we're getting onto the time coding staging. Now in the time coding staging, we're going to run Winamp. And as Winamp plays the audio and times the audio, it's also going to be able to control the Avelites console. To be able to do that though, we need to be able to get it to set up. Now there is a plugin that you need for Winamp. To do that, you go to the Avelites website, download it, and we're just showing you there that it's been installed previously. Now it needs to be installed because it then makes Winamp a fixture. Just when we patched all the heads in before, we need to patch Winamp in. So it also gives it an address, so we've just assigned that to be address 3, even though it's not, the Titan 1 dongle is not capable of recording or outputting more than one line of DMX, because this is just going internal. We can actually put it on a different line. Okay, so that will actually work. So we're just showing you there how to find it as a fixture in the personality list. And at this point here, we've got Winamp up and running and added as a fixture. And as we're going to go through and record the different scenes, what I had on a separate display was the video. So I played the video beforehand so I know when roughly to hit go. So this is us now recording. As you can see, the clock on the top right hand corner of Titan software moving. We're actually recording these different stages, but obviously the video is slightly ahead just so we were prompted roughly to know when things were changing and roughly what parts of the video were going to happen at what time. So obviously the video at the minute's slightly behind, or slightly faster, sorry, than what the capture's showing us. But that's just to give you a prompt of what to expect. So as the video changes on YouTube, you can then change it on capture. So the rest of the video is then sped up a little bit just so we can get through to the end of it, but that was just showing you how to get a visual cue. And as the video on YouTube goes through, you're just hitting go on every key factor, key change that you want to happen within your time code. So we'll get to the end. So obviously getting to the end there, we may have made some mistakes. We might have missed a cue, for example, or there might be some timings that are slightly out. So we can go back in and enable the timer to play it back, but we also can look down and see all the time cues there. So as we listen to it back and press play on Winamp eventually, you then be able to go in and edit them times if there was slight mistakes or errors. So I'm just recording a blackout for the final stage at this point here. We did the crowd blinder, but we didn't do a blackout actually. So this is the process of just recording a blackout stage ready to be recorded. So after the blinder happens for that short burst of time, we can then go a blackout quickly afterwards. Now obviously we didn't add this in beforehand, so we can still go in and edit the time now and put it for half a second or a second after the original for now, until we go back and edit it later. So this now becomes part of our lighting cue. Okay. So we'll capture now on top. We've got the playback view below. You can see the times on the time code to the right of the slider there, yeah. And notice that it didn't start exactly on time, so we can go in and we can change that to the beginning. So we can override the times basically if there's any errors or mistakes that we missed the point. This can just fine tune it to make it more efficient, more effective as a lighting shot. So as we haven't enabled the timer from before, we need to enable that so that obviously it will run with a shot. So we'll start at the very beginning. I must have missed a couple of milliseconds. There we go. Right, so music's obviously going to be playing. Now if you didn't want that full intensity to be on from the beginning, we can obviously add fade in times as well. It's not so intense on the live show. It does gradually build, so we can change the delay and the fade in times to bring that in a couple of seconds after. There we go, so there's the fade in now, making it a little bit more realistic. So just due to the screen capture software there, just running a little bit slow, the process was a little bit slow in running that, as are a few of the others. But the stage is obviously running off Winamp now. We're not controlling it on Avalites anymore, it's running external, it's getting the time code from Winamp, saved as a fixture within the personality list. And basically what we're doing here is just clocking if there's any changes or differences when the audio is running, if the lights should have changed when the time didn't. We can then go in and edit them. As you can see, we're going to fly through and change the odd few times here or there. Might have been ever so shortly quick or fast, depending on what we were doing at the time. So you can just run the file from any point on Winamp as you're going through it, and it should start to pick up where it was. So if we scan forward, for example, don't have to listen to it from the beginning all the time. There we go. So you can see the cues are picking up. And it was just literally a case of going through and changing any timecode errors, so this might be sped up slightly until we get to the end. And fine tuning it all at each point to make sure it runs effectively as you want it. So getting to the end, you should find that all your times and all your lighting cues have been set up exactly how you wanted them. double check them all at the end as well before saving your show file. Obviously making sure that the pan and tilts have been isolated after each of the shapes. And saving the file. So that's now ready to run it on a gig. That's loaded internal, saved internally, saved external. The video of this will be following.